Hello everybody, welcome back to a brand new video on the channel. It is 5 spooky games for Halloween to add to the spectrum. I thought it was time to do a spooky top 5 for a change, as it's topical and seasonal with Halloween approaching. Hopefully the plan is to release this on Halloween, so if you're watching it as it releases, it should be Halloween today. So with a bit of luck. It was actually quite hard to find spooky games for the spectrum. There were a few about. I mean, I was considering putting Friday the 13th on, for example, until I saw the shocking marks it got. There's one game on it that didn't get great reviews as well, but we'll come to that. But yeah, it's hard to find decent spooky games, let's put it that way. And it's hard to find spooky games in general, I suppose. Anyway, without further ado, that's enough waffle from me. Let's get on with the countdown. Here are 5 spooky games for Halloween to add to the spectrum. Right then, first game we're going to talk about is Aliens, released in 1986 for £9.99 by Electric Dreams. This was a game I had played a lot of. I wasn't very good at it. No, not very good at this one. It used to scare me too much. So it's like when I was a kid, Alien and Aliens really scared me. I was fascinated by them as well. I loved them, but they really did get to me. And any game I had, like I had the Alien trilogy on PS1, and I had this game, and I had the original Alien game as well, and I couldn't play them. I just used to get too scared, particularly this one for some reason. I don't know why. This one got to me. So I didn't play loads and loads of it because I think what it was, I really liked the characters in Aliens, and I kept getting them killed in the game. And I was like, it was really upsetting me. I didn't want to play it anymore. So I remember it being a good game though, and I did thoroughly enjoy it. So let's have a little look at the Crash magazine as ever. I always try and pick the same magazine, and Crash was my favorite magazine growing up. So we'll always go with that one. We have presentation 88%, graphics 85%, playability 84%, addictive qualities 81%, value for money 82%, overall 84%. Comments wise, we have use of color, monochrome play area, graphics detailed with neat aliens, sound good tune at the beginning with spot effects throughout, skill levels 1, screens 255, that's a lot, and the general rating a good attempt at capturing the action and atmosphere of the film. Well, like I've already testified, when I was a kid it certainly captured the atmosphere for me. Let's read the review. Mark Isles, designer of Back to the Future, is behind this game of the film. Back on Earth after 40 years of floating in space, Ripley is horrified to find a planet where she discovered the aliens is now being colonized. No one believes her gruesome story until contact is lost with the colonists. Grudgingly, she agrees to accompany a group of highly trained space marines on a rescue mission. You direct that mission from the safety of the Mobile Tactical Operations Bay and are in command of Ripley, 4 space marines and an android. The action is viewed on video display generated by the camera on the helmet of the character currently being controlled. You can move the sights of the smart gun held by the human either to target the weapon or search the current location. The video camera follows the gun sight. As well as the main video display, the control console also includes a panel for each of the 6 team members. These individual displays include a bar readout that monitors the life status and stamina of the explorer. As a character gets near to exhaustion, the bar flashes and it changes colour when an alien is attacking. The number of the room currently occupied is also given on each individual's display panel. The press of the appropriate key gives control of a character, whereupon their portrait appears in the central control window. A biofunctions trace and a bar indicating the character's remaining smart gun ammunition also appear. The control window includes a counter that tots up the points collected for killing aliens. Characters can be moved around the complex room by room by using the doors, move the gun sight over a doorway and press fire to pass through. Rapid movement can be made by requesting the character being commanded to move north, south, east or west, and he or she can move up to 9 rooms in any of these directions. As the team moves through the complex, aliens start to come out of hiding. When a character enters a room where there's an alien, a warning alarm sounds. There are only a few moments in which to blast the monster before it realizes someone is there and zooms in for the kill. If the alien isn't eliminated, it dashes up to the view screen and the signal goes dead as it kills your soldier, which is why this game was so terrifying. Quite frankly, it was like, my word, they just you don't get a lot of time and you have to react quickly. If one of the team members who is not currently under your direct control meets up with an alien, the appropriate status bar turns yellow. If a rescue mission isn't executed rapidly, you lose the trapped team member. Aliens may also capture one of the humans and begin impregnating their victim. Again, a rescue mission is needed if a life is to be saved. Ultimately, the aim is to enter the room where the alien queen lays her eggs and wreak mayhem. Don't expect the alien hordes to ignore your presence though. So we'll read a little criticisms. We've got a couple on the side here. I was really amazed when I started to play Aliens. To be honest, I thought it was going to be a bit tacky, but Electric Dreams have done a really good job. The only way to play this game is late at night with all the lights off. Are you mad? And the TV extremely close to you. Basically, it's just another stomp around the shop type game, but it has got lots of extra features that bring it alive. Well worth a gander. Aliens is a very good game. Doubtless it will gain a lot of sales from the film tie-in, but even in its own right it's well worth playing. Graphics are very neat with the aliens suitably represented. Bearing in mind that the film is classed as being a horror, I think it could have been a bit more atmospheric, a somewhat difficult proposition on the spectrum. Title tune is fair and overall Aliens is a very playable game. I didn't find it terribly addictive, but other than that I have no complaints. Well, if you want the opinion of someone who was actually 12 at the time when they played this game, to work that out, I found it scary at the time. I probably won't find it as scary now, but I don't know, because whenever I watch I just watched Romulus recently, and then I get my heart rate up a little bit. So I think the aliens are one of those creatures that they do send a bit of anxiety through me, and I think this game represented it back in the day. It did, at least anyway. Don't know what it's going to be like to play nowadays, but I definitely think it's worth an add. If you are a fan of the franchise, for sure add it if you've never played it. If you like a spooky game, this could be right up your alley. So let me know in the comments if you've played it before and if you finished it, because I got nowhere near finishing it back then. Okay, shockingly, we're back into Lee's Never Played It territory. It's the Rocky Horror Show, released in 1985 for £8.95. Yeah, I never played this. Wasn't a massive fan of the movie when I saw it, but I think it's because, you know, as a kid, the first time I saw this movie, well, not a kid, probably like, you know, a teenager, I didn't really get it, and I don't like musicals particularly, so I've grown a bit more affectionate to it over time. I like Tim Curry, I think he's flipping brilliant, so, but I'm usually pretty open to watch anything that he's been in. Yeah, it wasn't really for me back then, and so I never played it at the time, and so I've still never played it. I wouldn't mind giving it a go. It certainly seems to be a reasonable game. I'm not the sort of person that can really judge how good or bad this game is, so let's just let Crash do that for us, and we'll have a look at the scores that it gets in the review. It got 77% for use of computer, 85 for graphics, 78 playability, 78 getting started, 70 for addictive qualities and value for money, and overall 79%, so not too bad there. Let's have a quick read. We're not going to read all of this, quite wordy this review. If you're one of the last people left on earth who knows nothing of the Rocky Horror Show, film or stage play, then you might be forgiven for not knowing what is going on. Good middle class American youngsters Janet and Brad, through some mechanical defect in their car, end up in this weird house for a night, and one of them gets turned to stone. Well, it'll do for start. It's entirely up to you whether it's Brad or Janet who gets stoned by the wicked Dr. Frankenfurter and his dreaded Medusa machine, but clearly the least solid of the pair must do the rescuing. The task ahead is simple. Guide the rescuer around the house and find the pieces of the Medusa and put it back together. Then you can wipe that rather stony smile from your partner's face and run like the blazers. Of course, finding the pieces isn't a piece of rock cake. You need to look for them, and that means opening doors and finding the right keys. And while you're lurching around this rather attractive period dwelling, you're going to be chased by quite a few people who would rather you didn't, and they have some pretty mean ways of expressing their preferences, like killing you. If you're lucky, something might just walk up to you and say something silly like, "I didn't like my teddy," or "It's just a jump to the left." Even I don't know the movie, I know that's part of the song, obviously. These remarks seem to move Brad and Janet to a state of total confusion, and after a few more from the right sort of person, that confusion moves up a grade to total death. Okay, that's interesting. The D-Medusa is made up of 15 separate bits which must be collected piece by piece and deposited in the chamber next to your stiff friend. At the start of each game, you'll find that the characters and the vital pieces have been left at random locations around the house. While there are fewer than 15 rooms within the house, some rooms have more than a mere lock to get past, the worst being a strange electric beam. The beam removes your one and only life if you get too close. It can be turned off, but it's a bit tricky. Your other problems move around on their own. They are the characters of the play, and each one of them will have a lasting effect on you. The butler, Riffraff, for example, is nuts. He wanders around all day long complaining that nobody loves him, while at the same time he's trying to zap you. One of the girls, Columbia, simply strips you naked when you bump into her. Interesting. Eddie is a chap/thing who is particularly unpleasant. He was one of Frank's failed experiments. Fortunately, he spends most of his time in the freezer. Unfortunately, the freezer doesn't work that well, and the thermometer at the base of the screen lets you know when he's thawing out. Oh, one last point. The whole house is a spaceship. Oh my god. Yes, it is difficult to believe, but there you are. From your arrival, you have 99 time periods, that's not as long as it sounds, to rescue your mate and run for it. Otherwise, by then, you'll see Frank will have grown tired of your feeble efforts and left for home. Apparently, Frank is this guy from outer space, and he wears the wrong clothes. Well, that seems to explain it all. Okay. Well, what a weird premise for a game. Well, this sums it up nicely from back in the day. This review here, it says, unfortunately, due to my not being able to receive Channel 4, I missed the Rocky Horror Show. Yeah, I remember when Channel 4 first came out, there was a lot of people that couldn't get it. Same with Channel 5, actually. I assume that the game follows the same theme, but in any case, it's a good game. CRL have used nice graphics, and I found collecting bits a little repetitive after a while. The hero sprites went into some weird dance routines on occasions. I regret not being able to understand the point of the wacky conversations, but even so, a playable enjoyable game, but not that addictive. So I guess if you are into the Rocky Horror Show, you're going to find something for sure about this game. Me, I've seen the movie. I can't remember much about it. I'm certainly not obsessed with it like some people are. So I don't know. I'd like to give the game a go though, because I've never played it before. So I think, like I said already, there's not a lot of spooky games. It's quite nice to play them this time of the year. So yeah, I definitely think I will give it a go. Let me know in the comments if you've played it before. If you're obsessed with the Rocky Horror Show, tell me that too. I'm not slagging it off by any means, but for me, you know, musicals never been my thing really. So never been that excited about it. But for sure, I'll give the game a go. Okay, so time for game 3, and it's Ollie and Lissa 2 Halloween, released in 1990 for £2.99. I included this one because it has Halloween in the title for one thing, and also it looked very witchy, which kind of fitted in with the theme. It's another game I've never played before. Played the first one, don't think I played number 2, or also discovered while I was doing this video there's a number 3 as well, and the original's been remade as well, I believe. But yeah, I haven't played this game before, so I was contemplating maybe not putting it on here for that reason alone, because the only review that there is that I could find is a very short one. So we're not going to have too much footage on this one. So that's why I'm pretty much waffling on now about nothing, trying to fill a little bit of time, because like I said, I've not played this one yet, so I don't know much about it. And also the review is so short, it's crazy. You'll see when I put it up on the screen. It's from Computer and Video Games, because it was the only review that was up on the site that I could find. It may have been in a Crash or a Your Sinclair or something somewhere, but it wasn't listed anywhere. So obviously I can't go trawling through every single magazine to find the review. If it's not very clearly marked, then unfortunately I can't include it. So we'll see what they have to say in the review. I'll read the whole thing, obviously. Remember Ollie and Lissa, the ambulatory blobs from the old Silver platform game? Well, they're back, sort of, in Halloween. The story is difficult to follow, but apparently Ollie's chum Arabella the Fairy, who looks more like a witch, has baked a cake which exploded and blew 16 objects all over Ollie and Lissa's castle, and now she has to return them. Before she can collect each item though, she needs to collect a wand, which seems an unnecessary fiddle, but thus armed she can zap the nasty creatures which have infested the castle. Unfortunately, finding your way around the multitude of screens can be a bit confusing until you've worked out which doors lead to which rooms. But once you've got that sorted out, this turns out to be quite an enjoyable game. Arcade adventure fans, check it out. And you can see here the overall score was 78%, a good example of the sort of arcade adventure you see a lot on Spectrum budget labels. And that literally is the review. That's all I could find about this game. So it's a bit of a bummer in a sense, because, you know, I don't have anything to say about it because I don't know anything about it. So trying to fill this section of the video was a challenge, but I wanted to include this game because it looks quite good. It looks very colourful, nice graphics, and the gameplay itself, when I was playing it, was pretty cool. So it got 78% too, so it's not got a bad score. I'm really relying on you guys probably to tell me a little bit more about this, so do let me know in the comments if you've played it. I know I enjoyed the first game, so I'm pretty sure that the second game's going to be pretty good too, hopefully. And yeah, let me know if you've played it, and I apologise the fact that I couldn't find a longer review for this one. It's a bit disappointing, but it did got the game bumped off. I actually considered bringing our old friend Friday the 13th back in again because I could find more things about that, but everything was so negative about that game that I just didn't really want to include it. But this game looks nice, and I think it's worthy of a place on here for sure, and hopefully there'll be a few of you out there that can share a few memories of the game for us. The fourth game on this list is Chiller from Mastertronic, which cost £1.99 and was released in 1985. When I was researching this game, I found a fun fact out. It says problems arose when it was found out that the backing music bore a remarkable resemblance to Michael Jackson's Thriller. Mastertronic agreed to negotiate a royalty in respect of this and to use different music in future production runs. So as such, there could be a version with different music. So you could find a version with the original Thriller music on. I don't know if ROMs were made purely off of the changed version or the old version, or if there's some of each out there. So that could be quite fascinating to see if you get a version to add to your Spectrum that sounds like it's got Thriller music. But anyway, you might not be adding it to the Spectrum though when you see what this review gave it, because they did not gush about it, let's put it that way. This is the marks from Crash. Use of computer 61%, graphics 50%, playability 31, ouch. Getting started 67. This is the kick in the teeth though. Addictive qualities 15%, value for money 65%, overall 42%. I played this game when I was younger. I didn't think anything was wrong with it, but I was only 11 years old back then, so maybe these adults that are reviewing the games had higher standards. Let's read a little bit from the review. It says the plot behind Chiller is very similar to the Michael Jackson video Thriller. At least the scenes are the same, they're just presented in a slightly different sequence. Wow, they really were going all out to piss off the Michael Jackson estate, weren't they? Mental. The action starts in the forest rather than in the cinema, and then moves to the cinema, the ghetto, the graveyard, and the shack. Well, actually it's a mansion now. That's about as far as the similarity goes. Well, it will be very hard to design a game in which the player had to run around singing, dancing, and generally pulling funny faces at the local population. It's a game I'd like to see though. Chiller still has the touch of the old Hollywood horror film. Boy meets girl, boy loses girl to the gremlins, boy sets off to rescue the girl before it's too late. Essentially, Chiller is a platform game played over 5 screens. You start off in the forest and your task is to collect all of the crosses that are scattered around while avoiding contact with any of the ghouls, and that includes just about anything that moves. Should you collide, then your energy, shown on a bar line, will decrease. You only have 1 life, so it's important to keep your energy levels high, and this is done by eating mushrooms. Be careful not to eat purple ones. Not only do they look rather unpleasant, but they actually will make you ill. After you collected the crosses, you can move to the next screen, but on every screen the task is the same. Collect crosses, eat mushrooms, avoid ghouls. If you escape from the forest, you must work your way through the next 4 screens before you have any chance of rescuing your girl. She's rather stupidly taken out position on the roof of the mansion. After you collected the objects and climbed up to meet her, you could be forgiven for expecting a break. Sorry, no Hollywood happy endings here. You must escape and go through it all again if you want to get her home safely. Oh my word, really? Points are allocated according to the number of crosses you collect. This is rather curious since there is also a scoreboard which shows you how many crosses you've collected. Okay. Of course, the one glaring omission is the thriller music, but that's all history now since the row about its use on the Commodore 64 version. So that's obviously where the trouble must have started. And we're going to read what they say about this here, and this might actually put you off actually adding it anyway. This first line is a cracker. Chiller is a pretty good CBM 64 to Spectrum conversion, but seeing as the game is pretty boring anyway, it wasn't really worth it. What a way to start it off, you know? The graphics are small but okay for what they have to do. On the other hand, they aren't really acceptable when you see the standard of some of the graphics produced today. There is a sound on off button, but virtually no sound to turn off. Chiller is quite playable for a while, but then soon becomes totally and utterly boring, and I wanted to switch it off 5 minutes after loading it. I'd rather pay more for a good game than £1.99 for this rubbish. Ouch. The little one at the end says, Chiller actually looks rather good at first glance with jolly graphics, but this impression only survives a few moments once you actually start playing. The game content is poor, controls are sticky, and the overall objective is not sufficiently exciting enough to hold the attention for more than a few minutes. And the general rating on this game says, looks like there's a lot going on, but in the end lacking lasting appeal. Well, they didn't hold back on their criticisms of this one, did they? I remember like when I was a kid thinking it was alright, but like I said, I was a kid, so maybe, you know, I didn't really know what I was talking about. But if you want something that's got a little bit of a spooky element to it, then, you know, check it out if you've never played it before. Even if you do only play it for 5 minutes like the reviewer did, what's the harm? You know, it's 5 minutes of your life. You might actually enjoy it, you never know. And like, we've got to remember that sometimes these games back in the day, they were £1.99. You had to expect a certain standard from your games, of course. They were knocking a lot of these games out back then, so they're not ever going to get the attention of, like, you know, something that was costing 15 quid or whatever, were they? So sometimes you get a really good one like the Wild Bunch and stuff like that for that sort of money, but a lot of the time, you know, you're not going to get the best of games, so you take it with a pinch of salt. Me, it's on this list purely because it's a Halloween game. You know, it's a spooky game, but it's supposed to be a bit of a spook game. It's not going to scare anybody, let's face it, but you know, it's along the theme, so if you fancy something that fits with that sort of theme, give it a go. And finally, we have Zombie, released by Ubisoft in 1990 for £9.99 or £14.99 on disc. This was a game that, again, I didn't play on the Spectrum, but I played it on the Commodore Amiga when it came out. So I think by the time 1990 had rolled around, I'd had an Amiga for 3 years. I had graduated away from the Spectrum, which is rather sad, really. Like I said on the previous video, really back then, money was not prevalent in my family, at least, so we had to pick one computer. So, you know, you kind of tended to trade the older one in for a newer one. Nowadays, you retro game collect, and I've got lots of like classic computers, and obviously I've got the minis and all the rest of it. It's brilliant. It's easier to have more than one system, and obviously since the PlayStation era, I'd been kind of doing that. Although when I got my PS2, even for example, I had to trade my PS1 in for it. You kind of tended to upgrade, didn't you, back then in the early days of gaming, at least. I think by 87, I'd moved on to the Amiga, but I remember liking this game a lot on the Commodore Amiga. I was a massive fan of Dawn of the the Dead and all things zombie back then. So, and this is basically what this game is, even though it doesn't really say it. You know, you're zombies and you're in a shopping mall. You know, it's definitely, you can definitely see what the inspiration is, let's put it that way. So let's look at Crash. This is a Crash magazine, believe it or not. It does not look like a Crash magazine, does it? It looks more like a computer and video games or something like that. I guess by the 90s they'd obviously moved more into a modern look. Still got a crap load of ratings though. We have presentation 76%, graphics 78, sound 63, playability 79, addictivity 81, overall 81%. Atmospheric and scary 3D maze to grab you and consume you. Eat your heart out, George Romero. Again, it's not the longest review in the world, so we can probably read the whole thing. It is a bit higgledy-piggledy though, so bear with me. Well, it's not really, but with these reviews I always have to zoom in because we're looking at old magazines here, so it's not the clearest picture, so just bear with me while I read this. Well, you won't have to bear with me. I tell you what though, the amount of editing I have to do when I read these reviews, because the amount of like mistakes I made because the words just aren't quite clear enough to read. Plus also I'm getting old, let's face it, so anyway, let's crack on. It is said that when hell is full, the dead walk the earth. Well, in Zombie it appears this is indeed the case. Corpses have been rising from their graves all over the world, and they're after only one thing: human flesh. Yuck. Into this nightmare situation you are thrown. You control the actions of 4 survivors of this disaster. They've managed to escape the deadly hordes in a helicopter and are now vainly searching the shopping centre they were forced to land on for fuel. Well, this is so far straight up the plot of Dawn of the Dead, isn't it, if you've ever seen it before. This doesn't stop the undead from getting peckish, and the search of the shops is dangerous. Best be quick about getting that fuel. Guide each of the members of your team, 3 guys and a gal, through the maze of corridors. The actual game area is small, about a third of the screen, because of the icon displays used to control the chosen player. Below the playing screen are the use, quit, game and save load icons. Above are graphical representations of the characters with the objects collected screens and the current time on the side. Your view is a first person perspective through the character's eyes, and to move you click on the arrows at the side of the playing screen. Visiting the shops in the precinct turns up handy objects such as guns, food, computer and a torch for exploring sinister dark places. Unfortunately, Ubisoft haven't received much acclaim from Crash recently. Zombie may be a turning point. It's really rather good. The zombies of the title really do scare you when first encountered. Although the sprites in general are monochromatic, they are well drawn. Fans of horror films might like to take a look, but only from behind the sofa. And that was from Mark, and he gave it 80%. We'll also read what Nick had to say. This has got to be one of the best games Ubisoft have ever done. It uses an old game style but brings it bang up to date with a good storyline, exciting locations and lots to do. You have to move around the 3D building, picking up objects that may be useful and collecting fuel for your helicopter so you can escape the zombies. 4 characters all have different strengths and weaknesses, and each can be moved around separately. All the graphics are very well drawn and 3D works well. If only there was a bit more colour in the game. You can have great fun just roaming around shooting zombies and exploring the rooms, but with more time you could get really into the story and be totally addicted. Zombie is great. I'll be playing it for some time. You can't drag me away. 83%. And I guess that's going to be the difference about playing this on the Spectrum, isn't it? When I played this game before, played it on the Amiga, and it's a nice looking, pretty colourful game. Obviously Spectrum has its limitations, and we are going to get a monochromatic version of the game. Whether that's something that's going to put me off playing it, I don't think so. You know, I will definitely give it a try. Problem is, obviously I own a Amiga Mini 2, so chances are I might feel more inclined to play it on there, but I'm definitely going to give it a try on the Spectrum as well. Let me know in the comments if you've played it, if you've played any version of this before. Maybe you've played the Amiga version as well. But I know back in the day I really enjoyed the Amiga version, and like I said, being a fan of Dawn of the Dead, that made it even more fun to play. And a little bit scary to play too, to be honest with you, because that movie did scare me when I was younger. So let me know what you think. Let me know if you played it, let me know if you finished it, and let me know if you've actually played specifically the Spectrum version. I'd be very keen to hear. Okay, so they were your 5 spooky games for Halloween to add to your Spectrum. We had Aliens, The Rocky Horror Show, Ollie and Lissa 2, Halloween, Chiller and Zombie. Like I said at the beginning, like the intro, quite hard to find spooky games, particularly semi-decent ones, so I hope this was a good enough selection. Like I said, Friday the 13th was originally on this list, but no. I played it on the Commodore 64 and not the best of games anyway, but apparently really bad on the ZX Spectrum, so I switched it out for Chiller, which I thought had slightly better results. So anyway, there we have it. This will be the last top 5 or 10 or 20 games to add for a little while, because like I said, we're switching it up. Hopefully I'm going to get 22 days worth of videos out in a row. It's ambitious, for me, very ambitious. It does take a while to do these videos, so I'm gonna aim for it. If I only get 20 done or whatever, you'll get what I can do. I kind of figured we are on the final stretch now. Time Halloween ends and we move into the next day. We are into November, so it will be time to start the countdown in earnest. And I thought 22 days of November until the Spectrum's released. Why not? We do 22 games, and it's going to be focusing on 22 of the games that are on the Spectrum, because they haven't had their due yet, you know, because we've been talking about games we're going to add that aren't on the Spectrum. But what about talking about some of the games that are on there? And we know there's a few classics, so I've picked 22 of the 48, and we're going to just talk about one of those a day. That's the plan, in case you didn't hear it on the previous video. Also, my other plan is on the day of release, I'll be making a little instructional video just to show anybody who's not quite sure how to add the extra games to the Spectrum. So that'll be coming as well, hopefully on the day of release. That's the plan. I'm gonna get up at the crack of dawn, pick up my Spectrum from Smith's Toys, rush home and work on the video, and hopefully have it up by the end of the day. It might be a late release on that one, I don't know. The plan is though to get there early and get back early and work on it and get it up around the afternoon time, but we will see, because I know everybody's going to want to get their Spectrum and set it up. Well, if you're like me, you are anyway. I'm pretty sure most of you are. Well, you want to get everything on there as soon as possible, so that's the plan anyway. Again, we'll see. Health permitting, touch wood, I will touch my coffee table there, just as a little good luck charm. But yeah, the old health's not been great lately, both physically and mentally, so I'm trying hard. I like making these videos. They lift my spirits and they do get my mental health going in the right direction. It's nice to interact with people. I'd say over the course of probably about the 1,000 or so comments I've received on my Spectrum videos, I've had maybe about 3 or 4 horrible ones, and the rest have all been really nice and really encouraging, and people really being like really kind with some of the words I've had to say about my videos. So I really do appreciate that. I'll keep making them. Why not? As long as I'm fit and healthy, I will keep doing it, because like I said, it helps me too. Okay guys, thanks so much for watching. Take care. See you soon. Bye for now.